We believe in a merciful God. But what do we call the silence that answers the cries of a suffering animal? This is the dilemma. It's a contradiction that echoes throughout history and across every faith. A question that isn't asked in a theology classroom, but in the quiet, heartbreaking moments when we witness pain. It's a question that challenges our very idea of a benevolent creator. This video is an unflinching look into that contradiction. We will not offer easy answers. We will explore the deeply ingrained religious worldviews that attempt to justify this suffering. And we will ask what their silence truly means for us and for them. To truly grapple with why a merciful God might allow animal suffering, we must examine how different faiths perceive the animal kingdom and humanity's role within it. What foundational beliefs shape our understanding of these creatures and their place in the divine plan? This section will be a journey through distinct theological landscapes, revealing a spectrum of perspectives that both illuminate and complicate our central question. The Abrahamic faiths often place humanity in a unique position within creation. In Christianity, the Book of Genesis grants humans dominion over all living things. This concept is central to understanding the traditional Christian view of animals. But the interpretation of dominion is far from monolithic. One theological current emphasizes stewardship, the idea that humans are caretakers entrusted by God to protect and nurture all of creation. Animals in this view are not mere resources but fellow inhabitants of God's world, deserving of compassion and respect. Figures like Saint Francis of Assisi embody this compassionate approach, viewing animals as brothers and sisters in Christ. This perspective highlights a responsibility to care for their well-being. However, another interpretation of dominion has historically led to a more utilitarian view, where animals are seen as existing primarily for human benefit. This perspective has justified practices ranging from animal sacrifice in ancient times to the intensive farming and animal testing of today. The tension between stewardship and a more exploitative dominion remains a key aspect of the Christian struggle with animal suffering. Islam, like Christianity, posits a divinely ordained hierarchy with humans holding a privileged position. The Quran describes animals as being created for the service of mankind, providing food, transportation, and other benefits. This view establishes animals as valuable resources within the divine order. Their use for human sustenance and well-being is often presented as part of God's design. Rituals like the sacrifice of animals during Eid al-Adha further reinforce this understanding of their role, fulfilling a religious obligation and providing for the community. Yet, Islamic teachings are also rich with exhortations for kindness and compassion towards animals. The Prophet Muhammad emphasized the importance of treating animals with mercy, forbidding their unnecessary suffering and cruelty. Stories abound of his care for even the smallest creatures. This creates a nuanced perspective where animals are both resources and beings deserving of humane treatment. The question of where the line lies in their use remains a point of ethical consideration. The theological landscape shifts dramatically as we move to Hinduism. Here, the concept of samsara, the continuous cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, fundamentally alters the human-animal relationship. The belief that a soul can transmigrate between human and animal forms erodes the sharp distinction found in many other religions. Animals are not simply resources or beings under human dominion. They are potential vessels for souls on their spiritual journey. This understanding fosters a deep reverence for life in all its forms. The principle of ahimsa, non-violence, extends to all living creatures, recognizing their inherent worth and the interconnectedness of all beings. The suffering of an animal is not to be taken lightly, as it could be the suffering of a being on its own path to liberation. Deities associated with specific animals further solidify this sense of interconnectedness and respect, blurring the lines of hierarchy and emphasizing the sacredness of all life. Buddhism, born from the same Indic spiritual tradition as Hinduism, also emphasizes a profound respect for animal life, rooted in the understanding of sentience. The core teaching of compassion extends to all beings capable of feeling pain and joy. Animals are recognized as sentient beings with their own experiences and their own potential for enlightenment. The path to enlightenment in Buddhism involves cultivating compassion and reducing suffering for all. Intentionally causing harm to any sentient being, including animals, creates negative karma and hinders spiritual progress. The Buddhist understanding of rebirth also reinforces this interconnectedness, highlighting the impermanent nature of all life and the shared journey toward liberation from suffering. This perspective fosters a deep ethical responsibility towards the animal kingdom, seeing their suffering as intrinsically linked to our own. We have journeyed through a spectrum of belief, from the Abrahamic traditions where humanity stands as the ultimate steward or master, to the Indic faiths where the soul itself is a shared currency between all beings. But despite this vast diversity, we find a powerful and uncomfortable common thread. The problem of animal suffering across nearly every intellectual and theological tradition has historically been treated as a secondary concern. It is a footnote to the much larger problem of evil, which is almost exclusively focused on human pain. This is a silent agreement, an unstated assumption that animal pain does not have the same theological weight as our own. This perspective is rooted in a shared intellectual tradition. It is a product of anthropocentrism, the deep-seated belief that humanity is a special and exceptional species. If we are exceptional, then our suffering, our purpose, and our relationship with God must also be exceptional. This intellectual hierarchy gives rise to a moral dilemma. How do we reconcile the suffering of creatures we deem lesser with a God we believe to be all-merciful? The silence on this issue is not an absence of thought. It is the sound of an intellectual framework straining to justify a moral blind spot. But today, this centuries-old framework is under immense pressure. Modern science has revealed a world where animals are far more complex than our ancestors imagined. We know they feel pain, exhibit intelligence, and possess complex social lives. The scale of industrial animal suffering today, a byproduct of our belief in unlimited dominion, is a moral reality that our ancient texts never had to confront. We are no longer living in a world of shepherds and a few sacrificial animals. We are living in a world of industrial-scale suffering, justified by a tradition that no longer holds up to modern scrutiny. The question, therefore, returns to us. What do we do with this new knowledge? The moral burden of animal suffering has been placed squarely in our hands. It is no longer a footnote, a divine mystery, or a silent problem. It has become a moral imperative, one that demands a new kind of theological and philosophical reckoning. This reckoning is not about abandoning faith. It is about challenging the assumptions that have guided our faith for millennia. It is about asking if a belief system that permits such widespread suffering can truly be a reflection of divine mercy. This brings us to our conclusion. Perhaps the question isn't meant to have an easy answer. Perhaps its true purpose isn't to be a test of our faith in God, but a test of our humanity. The real problem isn't what God allows, but what we allow. The moment we place ourselves at the center of the universe, with a sense of entitlement to all its creatures, we accept a worldview that justifies their pain. The question, why does God allow animal suffering, may not be a theological one at all. It may simply be the echo of a profound silence, a silence that invites us to listen. It asks us to look beyond our own species and our own scriptures to find a deeper sense of empathy and responsibility. It asks us ultimately to be better. Is a truly merciful God merciful only to us?